Hi guys, it's me Chaz HD and welcome to the 2019 Austrian Grand Prix weekend, and today of course we are doing our watch along for practice 2 for the 2019 Austrian Grand Prix weekend here at the Red Bull Ring in the Styrian Mountains in Austria. Great to have you guys along as always, and hopefully after last weekend's race, hopefully this weekend we will have a more interesting race up top and just in general a more exciting race on the Sunday and a more exciting weekend. Hopefully we do get that, and hopefully you guys today will enjoy and watch along with us practice 2 in Austria. But also if you can't watch along but can only listen, then I'll definitely make sure that I can keep you guys up to date that are currently out and about or at work as to what is going on in practice 2. But yeah, great to have you guys along, and now let's get right into, for the next 30 minutes, the build up to second practice. Now there has of course been a practice session already today in Austria, and here are the results of that session. So Lewis Hamilton was top from Sebastian Vettel in second, Valtteri Bottas was third, then it was Leclerc fourth, Verstappen fifth, Gasly sixth, and then Sainz, Ricciardo, Magnussen and Norris completing the top 10. And then outside the top 10, Grosjean, Kvyat, Albon, Hulkenberg, Perez, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Stroll, Russell and Kubica. And I think looking at those times, definitely at the top, if you look at the tyres they were on, it's definitely going to be a lot more competitive out front than it was in France. I don't think we can doubt that whatsoever. But now, let's get into the teams. And also, I'm going to talk about a couple topics that have come up kind of today but also from yesterday to do with Formula 1 at the moment and also this weekend. So of course, let's go to Mercedes first, and first off I'll talk about the pace of their car. So this weekend I think they will have a good car. I don't think they're going to be, if they are slower than Ferrari, I don't think they're going to be miles off. I think it'll still be, if Ferrari are quicker, I still think Mercedes are going to be within 0.2 of a second at the absolute worst. But I think generally when it comes to race day, and you'll notice this most likely during the race simulation in the second half of practice 2 today, that Mercedes will definitely have the race pace to be able to, win the race on Sunday. And I think they will absolutely show that today in Austria. And I think they will have, even if they don't have the best car in terms of that qualifying speed, I still think they will have a very good car. But to do with Mercedes, there has been other news that has come out today, and it's not to do absolutely only with Mercedes, but it does play a big part to do with them. So at 9 a.m. this morning in the paddock, of course 9 a.m. Austrian time, there was a meeting between the teams, the FIA and some drivers, and what happened was the teams voted on whether we should go back to the 2018 tyres. And for me, the right decision was absolutely made, as the decision is that we are not going to be going back to the 2018 tyres. We are going to be keeping the 2019 tyres for the rest of 2019. And for me, that is great news. No, I'm not being sarcastic. I honestly think it is great news. And it's for really 3 reasons why I think that. One, at the end of the day, the teams that are complaining have had plenty of time to work out how these tyres perform. They've had plenty of time. They've had 8 days of dry pre-season testing, 2 post-race tests, and 8 race weekends. And we haven't had, any rain this season? I don't think we've had any rain in 2019 at any race weekend. So how these teams are busy complaining instead of trying to look, through their data and look through other things to try and find out how they can improve and get the tyres working in the way they want it to. I just don't understand. You had plenty of time to figure out these tyres. It's not, Mercedes or McLaren's fault or whoever's fault that are getting the tyres working that, you're in the position you're in. So I honestly think the teams that are complaining have no real ground to stand on. Also, if we did rather go back to the 2018 tyres, it wouldn't make the racing any better. It wouldn't, because there'd be more tyre saving, because the 2018 tyres are worse when it comes to tyre wear. So it wouldn't be any better, because for the people that, don't want drivers cruising around saving tyres, it would make it only worse. It would not make it any better. And for the people that think, possibly Mercedes wouldn't be as quick with 2018 tyres, I disagree. I don't think Mercedes have won all of the races this season because of tyres. Mercedes have been as successful as they have been because they have the best car. They have enough power from their engine, and they have the best aerodynamic package on the grid. Simple as. Yes, tyres are a factor, but they're not at all the complete story. And I honestly think even if we went back to 2018 tyres, Mercedes wouldn't be stopped. They wouldn't be. Ferrari would not be winning races on a regular basis, nor would Red Bull. Mercedes just have a better car. It's as simple as that. And also, my third point, with really Ferrari and Red Bull, who we'll get onto in a moment, is stop complaining about the tyres and stop blaming others for your failures, because at the end of the day, you haven't, Ferrari and Red Bull, you have not produced a good enough car. It's as simple as that. If you spent the time you spent, whining about tyres, if you spent that time improving the car or, going through data to see how you can get the tyres working or, again, improve your car, maybe Mercedes wouldn't have been so dominant as they have been so far in 2019. So stop whining, get on with it, and improve your car. Simple as. That's the way the world is. So I think, honestly, Ferrari and Red Bull are just acting like children, honestly. And it's, again, as I said a moment ago, there's no real guarantee that Mercedes are not going to win races if we go back to 2018 tyres. I honestly think the tyres are not playing as big of a role in terms of the speed of the cars as people think. I just think the Mercedes car is the best. The Ferrari and Red Bull, even if we're on 2018, 2017 tyres, doesn't matter what tyres, Ferrari and Red Bull don't have as good a car. And that's if you forget the tyres. So, for me, the right decision has been made. And also, I just want to elaborate on one point that Sebastian Vettel, who attended the vote or meeting, said that instead of the teams voting, we should just leave it up to Ross Brawn. Now, I completely disagree, because you have to, when you're, consulting or trying to introduce new rules or ban things or, stuff like that, you have to consult more than one person, and you do have to consult the teams. That's just how it works. It happens in other sports, so that's just the way it is. And I think, honestly, it would be very silly to just leave it in the hands of one person, because you need, more than one person to come to a good decision. One person can't always come to the best decision. It needs to be 3 or 4 people at least, but the teams have to have some sort of say, because it's going to affect them at the end of the day, and also they will, be most affected by any new rules or banning of certain things. So they have to be consulted, and I don't think it should just be Ross Brawn who should be approving or disapproving these things. But there you go, that's my opinion on that. That happened today, by the way, that meeting, and the tyres for 2019, if you are just joining us, are staying. The 2018 tyres will not be returning, and for me, that is a great thing. And I think today is absolutely a good day in terms of the 2018 tyres not being brought back. But now, let's go on to the other teams. So, Ferrari, in terms of pace this weekend, I think Ferrari will have, in terms of qualifying pace, I think Ferrari will have the best car. But when it comes to race pace, I think Ferrari won't have the best car. I think Mercedes will absolutely have the advantage when it comes to race pace. But when it comes to qualifying pace, I think Ferrari will take it because this circuit is a power circuit. It absolutely is. It has 3 DRS zones, and really until you get to the middle sector, it's full of straights absolutely everywhere. And I think because of that, and because Ferrari, of course, do have the best power unit on the grid, that will definitely in qualifying, where as well we normally do tend to see Ferrari performing at their best when it comes to qualifying pace instead of race pace. I think Ferrari will be probably in practice too, and also in qualifying at the top. Now, it won't be a massive gap back to Mercedes. It's still going to be close, but I do expect Ferrari, if they're not top, to be very, very close. Because if a track like Canada can produce a result such as for them pole position and, well, basically on track winning the race, then why not here? Because this track suits their car even more. So yeah, I think Ferrari this weekend are going to be good. And I will say, don't be surprised in practice 2 today if they are top of the timesheets. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Next up is Red Bull. Red Bull compared to Mercedes and Ferrari are going to be nowhere. They're not going to be anywhere near them in qualifying or the race because they don't have the power to compete, but also they don't have enough grip in the race to compete as well. So the best they can really do is P5 and P6. And that's really as simple as it is. Red Bull just don't have, with Honda, they just don't have a good enough car right now. And it is a shame, but that's the way it is. If you compare Red Bull to, say, how they were in Spain and Monaco, Red Bull are going backwards. They're not going forwards at all. So, yeah, Red Bull, I think, are not going to be anywhere near Ferrari and Mercedes. But also, I think they will be closer to the midfield. Both drivers will be closer to the midfield than they will be to the front 4 runners, Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton and Bottas. I honestly think that because their car just isn't the type of car that is going to go well here. So I think Red Bull are in for a struggle. Also, some other news that has come out, I think today or this morning, is that Christian Horner wants the curbs, or not the curbs, but the curb beyond the curb, if you know what I mean. He wants those on the exit of the final 2 corners removed because they're causing damage to the cars for, drivers that are running wide. I completely disagree, and my simple retort to Horner is, tell the drivers not to run wide. If you try to track extend, there should be some kind of punishment, whether that's grass, gravel, or a sausage curb, or one of those little white curbs. Yes, it's not great if the car gets damaged, but don't try to extend the track and cut corners. It's as simple as that. So I think, yeah, that should not be, we shouldn't have any new curbs. We absolutely should not. But I think now we'll go on to, with 15 minutes to go, to the midfield. First off, Renault. Renault, I think this weekend are going to be in the top 10. I'm not sure whether it will be with both cars. I don't think they have, say, as good of a midfield car as McLaren do to be absolutely a top 10 runner in terms of speed. But I think they're going to be In terms of position, they're going to be kind of similar to how they were in Paul Ricard. They're going to be back end of the top 10. At worst, they're going to be P11 or P12. And I think Renault, given that their power unit is doing all right at the moment, I think they are in for a decent weekend, especially against possibly Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull, because of course Gasly is struggling for speed, but also the Honda power unit is not doing well at all. And of course, we come this weekend to a power circuit, so Renault should absolutely, like this team, McLaren, capitalise on that. And for McLaren, I think they will be faster than Renault, because I think McLaren do have overall a better car than Renault. It's still close, but I think McLaren do have overall a better car. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we did have a McLaren in the top 6. I wouldn't be surprised at all, because their car right now is very, very good, and it looks as though it's not that far away in terms of one-lap pace from the Red Bull. So don't be surprised if McLaren are, right up there. Next up is Alfa Romeo. Alfa, I think this weekend are going to be, say, I don't think they'll be in the top 10, but they're going to be just outside, like between P11 and P14, and I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing. So I think Alfa, they won't be as good as they were in Paul Ricard. I just don't think this type of track will be as good for them. And I think as long as they are within the top 12 or 13, I think that's all they really care about, because look, at the end of the day, Alfa Romeo know that they don't have as good of a car as McLaren and Renault. So as long as they're in the top 12 or 13 at the worst, which I think they will be, then that's absolutely fine for them, I think, because again, they just don't have as good of a car as McLaren and Renault. Next up is Haas, who, well, you'd be thinking after how they performed here since they came into the sport, how they performed at this track, that maybe this weekend they will be very, very quick. But I'm afraid I don't think so, because Haas at the moment have been terrible. They haven't had a good weekend since Spain. They've been that bad. Yes, in Monaco, their pace in qualifying was good, but the weekend in general just wasn't good enough in terms of the result they got. So I think Haas, they have the potential to show speed, but most likely I think they will be absolutely outside the top 10, because they just don't have a good enough car. They completely destroy their tyres. They're one of the teams, by the way, that wanted the 2018 tyres to come back for obvious reasons, because they just can't get the 2019 tyres working for them. And because of that, I think that's why right now they are struggling so much. And I think this weekend, honestly, that struggle is going to continue. Next up is Toro Rosso. Now, Alexander Albon, by the way, does have a grid penalty for this race, and also so does Carlos Sainz. I forgot to mention with McLaren, but yeah, Carlos Sainz does have a grid penalty as well, and they both have grid penalties because of new parts on their power unit. So yeah, they'll both be starting, I believe, at the very back. For Toro Rosso, they can only really concentrate on what Danny Kvyat does this weekend. Of course, Albon could come through and finish in the points if he has an amazing race like he did in China, but they really have to concentrate on Danny Kvyat this weekend. And I think in terms of qualifying speed, I think if Toro Rosso can end up inside the top 12, then I think that would be good enough for them. I think they'd be pleased with that. And I honestly, if I was the team boss of Toro Rosso, I would be happy if one of my cars was in the top 12, because I think that would show that that car does have pace. Not necessarily enough to be right in the top 10, but that it does have pace, and that, say, when it comes to race pace, where of course we know Toro Rosso are always more important, or not more important, are always better, that they can be in that top 10. So I think as long as Toro Rosso can, be in the top 12, I think honestly that'll be absolutely fine. And finally, from the midfield is Racing Point. Racing Point, I think, most likely are going to be at the back of the midfield. I think they could get a driver, say, into Q2 and capitalise on, say, if Haas are having a poor day tomorrow in qualifying, and say if even today in practice too, if Haas are not looking that great, I think, Racing Point could be up in P14, P15, but most likely I think Racing Point will be at the back of the midfield simply because their car isn't developed enough and they aren't really going anywhere right now. And that's a shame, but that's just the way it is. And then, of course, Williams will be at the back. Guys, right now in the live chat, let me know for the teams, and also to do with the tyre meeting that happened this morning. Let me know what you think about all those things right now in the live chat. And I'll make sure to read out some of your comments very, very soon. I see you put that in the live chat. But also, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as, of course, I will be doing a qualifying and race watch along tomorrow and Sunday. And this channel is the only channel on this website where you can catch a watch along for qualifying and the race in Austria for 2019. So don't forget to subscribe either on the bottom right of the screen, or go to my homepage, subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And also don't forget to smash the like if you want to see content like this continue. But I'll just have a quick drink, guys, and then I'll get to your comments very, very soon. Right, so we're back, but actually, before I get onto your comments, there's one more thing I need to talk about, and it's great news, guys. It really, really is. This man, Dan Ticktum, has been officially dropped from the Red Bull driver program. Thank God for that, because this guy is such a dick. I honestly do dislike him. I really do, because he's such an arrogant, whiny, crybaby person. I can't possibly like someone like this. I honestly can't. And I am very happy that he has been dropped from the program, because quite frankly, he doesn't deserve to be a part of the Red Bull Academy. And I don't think he ever deserves to be in any top level motorsport series, because mentally he cannot cope with being at that level. And if you look at Super Formula that he has been competing in, he has been absolutely terrible. Even Kamui Kobayashi, who is racing in that series, is outperforming him. So how is he ever going to get to Formula 1? And it is, again, great news, because this guy just has such a rotten attitude to things. For example, deliberately crashing into someone under a safety car and overtaking 10 cars to do so. What else? Accusing Mick Schumacher and also not Formula 2, the Formula 3 series, of deliberately siding with Mick Schumacher so he can win the championship. Blaming, his car for his failures in Asia, in the Asian Winter Series in F3, and also in Super Formula. Those are the reasons I don't like him, and those are the reasons why, thankfully, he has been dropped. And I can firmly say that Dan Ticktum, may your F1 career rest in piss. But now, let's get into your comments to do with, the teams this weekend. With, of course, 5 minutes to go until practice 2. But let me take a look at some of your comments now. Right, let me find some comments. Wakanda Forever, Chazza, does having the best chassis mean that you'll have the fastest car in city tracks and aero sectors that need great aero? And some guy says you need chassis in city tracks, not aero. Yeah, if there's a part of the track that is strictly about cornering speed, then yeah, you do need to have a very good aerodynamic package or, good chassis. But it's a combination at the end of the day, because some circuits, a lot of circuits, to be honest, have a sector of the track where power is very important. For example, if you look at the Circuit of Americas, Sector 1 and Sector 3 is about cornering speed, but the middle sector is about sheer power. So the combination of the two, is what creates the fastest car. And that's why Mercedes do have the best car, because they have enough power, and they also have the best aerodynamic package combined with that power to be at the front. And that's why in France, even though the middle sector is about power, they were so good, because they had enough of both to be so quick. But at this circuit this weekend, it's mostly about power. The first two sectors are about power. If you don't have good straight line speed, you are going to struggle this weekend. In the race, if you do have a good aerodynamic balance, but you don't have the power, if tyre wear is bad, then maybe you can make your way through the field. But again, if you don't have the power, you are really going to struggle here. Yes, I know Max Verstappen won last year, but that wasn't because he had the power to overtake. That was because the two Mercedes retired and, of course, made the error on the virtual safety car, but also the two Ferraris were behind Verstappen at the start, so Max could, manage the gap to those two. But yeah, power here is very, very important. Very, very important. But we now have, 2.5 minutes to go until the practice session gets underway. So I'll get the running order booted up in just a moment. By the way, guys, just to let you know, I do have a bit of a cold. It's not massive, but I do have a bit of a cold. I'm not too well at the moment. I have had tonsillitis during the week that has been very painful. I do have a bit of a cold as well. So please bear with me today, because I'm not at my absolute best. And also, it's incredibly hot where I am at in the UK. So it's very uncomfortable. Let's just say that. Yeah, 2 minutes to go until practice 2. Thank you, Nancy M, for saying get well soon, man. Right, let me find some more comments here if I can. I'm just scrolling up a minute. Casey Doyle asks, do you think this race will be like Canada? Hopefully. Even though, of course, I was complaining about the penalty, the race in Canada was great. What we had in Canada should be the standard for racing in F1. Canada wasn't one of the best races of all time, but again, it was a good race that had the appropriate action to keep us entertained during the race. And that's what Formula One absolutely desperately needs. So I think, Canada is similar. It's a kind of similar track to this, but the only differences are that it's a bit more about power here than it is in Canada, but also it's a lot wider here than it is in Canada also. But I'll get rid of that timer. And now get the graphics ready for you guys. I'll get the running order up in just a moment. Let me just do this text. There you go. And practice. Let me just get this up. By the way, this running order is not the live one. This is from the French Grand Prix. But yeah, practice 2 gets underway pretty soon. I think it's about to get underway in literally just a moment, but we're not seeing yet whether the green light has gone. And don't forget, guys, I will post pictures during the stream of what is going on, so don't worry about that. As, yeah, we're seeing replays of cars in practice 1 going a bit wide at turn 1 like they used to do back in 2002 and 2003. Right. And also, Jordi just mentioned, and it is true, that Valtteri Bottas did have to put in an old power unit this morning because of an oil leak on the new one. So, again, more reliability issues for Mercedes, but it's not affecting them on track. So, eventually, if they keep having these issues, they're going to happen during a race. They can't keep getting away with it. So, yeah, they're going to have an issue soon enough, because this new power unit, you have to say, has not been very reliable, because Hamilton's car had an issue in Canada and France, and then this morning Bottas had an issue. So you have to say, yeah, Mercedes are not that reliable right now in terms of their power unit, but yet the session is now underway. I'll sync up the timer in just a moment as Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean and now Alexander Albon are on circuit. So, yeah, cars now on track as we're now getting properly underway. By the way, it is very, very hot today in Austria, just like it was back in France. And the track temperature right now at the Red Bull Ring is 52 degrees Celsius. 52 degrees Celsius. That is incredibly hot. So tyre wear again is going to be very important as Romain Grosjean starts his first lap in FP2. But here you go. That's the timer now. So about an hour and 28 minutes to go. And talking of the heat, I'll show you a picture that perfectly illustrates what I'm talking about and shows how hot it is. It's also 30 degrees air temperature. So yeah, if you're at the circuit, it's incredibly hot right now. But let me just get this picture posted for you guys of the conditions at the circuit. It's Romain Grosjean on the medium compound on his first FP2 run. Is of course going to go to the top of the timesheets. As well, Magnussen goes fastest first of all, as here you go. And here comes Romain Grosjean, who is second, about a tenth of a second off. But there you go. Those are the conditions right now in Austria, as we're currently seeing who's that? That's Carlos Sainz in the McLaren, still waiting to go out on circuit. And I'll now quickly move on to a picture of the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, as we've got Alexander Albon on track now, who of course is taking a grid penalty. So all he has to do today is focus on race pace. And here's a replay of Albon in turn 3, getting a bit wide on the exit and losing the rear slightly. There you go. That's the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. And again, as I said a moment ago, or a few moments ago, I don't think Haas are going to be that good. So don't expect Haas to be in the top 10, because I honestly don't think it will happen. Yeah, only 3 cars on track, and I think we've only had 3 lap times on the board. Those 3 cars, Magnussen, Grosjean, Albon, as Albon goes 3.5 tenths of a second faster in the first sector, which is rather impressive. as he now comes to turn 4. And Toro Rosso not looking great, but it's not looking bad. I've seen worse cars around this circuit. It does look like a good car. As Albon goes slightly wide on the exit curb, but is still massively up on Kevin Magnussen by about 0.4 of a second. And now he comes to the penultimate corner. And now the final corner. And will now open the DRS and go fastest by 0.3 of a second. So Albon goes to the top. But again, I stress that we've only had 3 lap times so far, and there is only 3 cars on track. So, yeah, we'll have to see what the others can do in a moment as replay there of Albon doing what you should do at turn 1 if you're going to run slightly wide and run alongside that sausage curb. But I didn't quite run alongside it, but that's how you should do it if you're going to go that wide. As we do now have the 2 McLarens and the racing point of Sergio Perez on circuit. So in the next minute or so, we will see a lap time from them. Let me just quickly look at some comments, as there's not that much action going on right now. By the way, if you are watching, I will update the order as soon as we get all drivers setting their first proper time of the session. So I'll wait until everyone sets a time. Eddie Webster asks, don't you think 2-stop races would be should be compulsory for all races to bring excitement to the races? No, I don't. I don't think there should be, because I don't think that will create good racing, and I think would make it very artificial if that's what happened. And I don't think necessarily having a one-stop race makes for a boring race. Look at Canada. It was a comfortable one-stop race for everyone, except for the Haas's, I think. And the race was great. So I don't think, ordering the teams to do more than one stop is going to help. I think if you look at history of Formula 1, we've had plenty of races that have been great or exciting and that have had only one pit stop. So I don't think that matters. I think, honestly, what they should do is make the tyres as hard as they can so the drivers can push as hard as they can during a race, because right now they can't. They've got to babysit them to get to a certain point in the race where they can pit at the ideal time. As Sergio Perez comes into turn 9, down to turn 10, and Sergio Perez now comes to the line, and Perez goes second, about 0.2 of a second off Albon. Also, we now have the 2 Alfa Romeos on circuit, as Carlos Sainz now goes top on a 106.7. Sainz and Albon 1 and 2, and they will both have grid penalties for the race. So what they do in this session in terms of qualifying speed doesn't really matter. Yeah, the 2 Alphas and now Lance Stroll are on track. Let me see if I can put up a different picture. Nope, not at the moment. We haven't had enough track action, I don't think, to do that. Yeah, waiting now for some other lap times. Gina, how will Max react if Honda is not good enough after 2020? Will he leave? It depends on where Honda are compared to Mercedes and Ferrari in terms of power, because this is the thing. If you compare Red Bull to 2018, Red Bull don't have a similar car to 2018, because in 2018, Red Bull had the best car in terms of the aerodynamics or chassis. They absolutely did. There is no doubt about that. This year, that is not the case. So it's not necessarily about if Honda doesn't improve, will he leave? It's also about, will Red Bull improve? And, you know, if they don't, will he leave? If they don't improve, that's also what it's about. So, with you know, with what's going on, it's not just Honda that need to improve, it's Red Bull. So Red Bull are missing about 2.5 to 3 tenths of a second on Mercedes. If they get that 2.5 to 3 tenths of a second, Red Bull could be a consistent podium finisher with Max Verstappen. But they're not at that point right now. So that's the way it is. As we're currently watching Martin Brundle trackside at the Red Bull ring at turn 4. So I don't know the times absolutely right now. I'm just trying to see if there's any other comments. By the way, Francisco, no, Nib is not going to join, but from what I've been hearing from him, it looks as though Nib will be on the race watch along on Sunday. So that is good news. As Romain Grosjean has now gone fastest. As here's a replay of Stroll, and Stroll loses a bit of his front wing going over the, not the curb, it's like a punishment curb. The yellow, yeah, it's like a yellow punishment curb for going wide on the exit of the final corner. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Christian Horner does want those to be removed, but for me, it's as simple as this. Don't go over the track limits. If you go over the track limits, you should be punished. So I don't see why they should get rid of them, because if they do get rid of them, then what you're going to have are drivers extending the track limits and going off the circuit and still completing a lap time, and it's going to create a farcical situation. As Antonio Giovinazzi goes off, and I don't know if he did have any debris flick off his car at the final corner also. Yes, he did. But it was very, very small. Jordi says, or bring back gravel traps. Absolutely. At least gravel traps stop people, but, well, at those final 2 corners, there used to be grass and gravel when it was the A1 ring in the early 2000s. But now it is mostly tarmac. Well, it is tarmac runoff basically everywhere. So that is the situation. And I think, honestly, having those, again, little yellow punishment curbs there does help to keep the drivers from cheating on their laps, and it punishes them if they go off the circuit, which of course is what we want to see. You shouldn't gain by going off the track. That is as simple as I can put it. But we now have Daniel Ricciardo on circuit. Robert Kubica is on circuit. So is Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc. And here comes Sebastian Vettel on his first run in FP2. Let's see on the hard compound as Carlos Sainz goes second. So it's currently a McLaren 1-2. Let's see how fast Vettel is. He's a half a tenth up already on 2 compound harder tyres after the first sector. Shows you how quick the Ferrari will be this weekend. As Vettel comes down to turn 4. And car looking settled for now, as he now passes a slowing Haas. As Vettel now comes to the middle sector and is still only half a tenth up, but is again on the hardest compound of tyre. As Giovinazzi has gone 8th, Kimi Raikkonen has gone up to 6th. I'll read out the order so far in a moment, even though we haven't had 20 lap times on the board. As Sebastian Vettel comes to the line and goes P4 on a 106.4. But again, Vettel is on the hardest compound of tyre. So yeah, there you go. As we also have Charles Leclerc on a lap. So we'll be seeing Leclerc, what he can do in just a moment. And I'll quickly, guys, post a picture as here comes Leclerc on the medium compound. Let's see what Leclerc can do. Opens the DRS and Charles Leclerc goes fastest by 0.6 of a second on a 1:05.5. But I'm going to show how Stroll broke some of his front wing by running wide, as here comes Valtteri Bottas on the medium compound, who is starting his first run in FP2. There you go, that's how Stroll broke apart his front wing. As you can see there, that bit flying off of his car. And yeah, it does damage the cars, but again, you should be punished for going off the circuit. Simple as. As Valtteri Bottas is now coming to turn number 4. Brakes, there's a car ahead of him. I think it's a Ferrari. And yes, it is. And he overtakes that slowing Ferrari. And now Valtteri Bottas will come to the middle sector. Bit of understeer on turn in. Bottas 0.4 of a second down at the moment. But in this final sector, this is where the Mercedes is absolutely the best. As, yeah, the car looks very good. Oh, I was going to say very good, but it turns into the final corner and got quite big oversteer and went off the track. Gets back on, but only goes P13. So, yeah, very scary there for Bottas, and quite simply, I think he got a bit too strong on the exit curb of the previous corner, and that kind of unsettled the car. Wait a minute, oh no, there you go. We're wondering why the timer text wasn't there. There you go. So we've got Hülkenberg and Russell now on an outlap. Lewis Hamilton has just gone up to P10. Max Verstappen, though, is still not on circuit. So I don't know if he has some kind of issue, but I'll have to see. As Hamilton did the same thing, went off at the final corner, not as badly though as Valtteri Bottas. So the cars are definitely on the absolute edge of grip in practice 2 so far, and we've still got, what, an hour and 10 minutes to go. But here comes Nico Hülkenberg on his first run of practice 2. Once Hülkenberg and Russell, by the way, complete their first time, I will do an update of the order. Let me just quickly see if I could post a different picture of anything else. Nope, not right now. But Hülkenberg is now into turn 4. And now comes up to turn 6. And up to the middle sector point. And Hülkenberg on the hard compound already 1.7 seconds off. I'm assuming Hülkenberg is not really giving it everything right now, as this is only a sighter for the rest of the session. And Hülkenberg just about gets through the final corner okay. And Hülkenberg only goes P16. As Russell now goes up to 18th. So now I'm going to update some of the order. As another replay of Hamilton going wide. So Leclerc is right now fastest of all. And then it is Lando Norris in P2. And that's another car going wide. I think it was a Haas. Carlos Sainz is 3rd. And then Romain Grosjean. Oh, I was going to say Grosjean is 4th. But Bottas has just gone P3. So that puts Sainz in P4. P5 is Romain Grosjean, and then it's Vettel in P6 as Hamilton now comes to the final corner on the hard compound tyres. Where will Lewis Hamilton go? He goes P2, only half a second down. That's a very impressive time. from Lewis Hamilton. So, and Max Verstappen is now on an outlap. But let me update the rest of the order. So Hamilton, Norris, then Bottas, as we've now gone to an ad break. So I'll be able to now do the order as it was before we went to that. Bottas is 4th. Carlos Sainz is in P5. Roman Grosjean is P6. And then P7 is Sebastian Vettel. P8 is Raikkonen. P9 is Perez. And then P10 is Antonio Giovinazzi. So Alfa Romeo looking good right now. And then it is Magnussen in P11. P12 is Danny Kvyat. Good for him. Ricciardo is 13th. And then 14th is Albon. So Toro Rosso looking pretty alright at the moment. And then Stroll is in 15th. Gasly is down in 16th for some reason. And then 17th is Nico Hülkenberg. And then it's Kubica, Russell, and Verstappen is, for the moment, at the back because he hasn't set a lap time. So we'll wait for that once we get back from the ad break in probably a couple minutes time. Right, let me look at some comments whilst we wait to come back from the ad break. Akan, I think it is, says, I think McLaren will be best of the rest. P7 and P8 for Norris and Sainz. Yeah, I think McLaren will be. It'll be close between them, Pierre Gasly and Renault, but I think, yeah, McLaren will be very good this weekend. I think, honestly, McLaren should be even better this weekend than they were in France, because if you look at this season, McLaren have gone better at power circuits than they have tracks where you need more drag and, you know, better aerodynamic balance. So I think McLaren, yeah, are going to be in for a good weekend, even though, of course, Carlos Sainz does have a penalty, a grid penalty for new parts on his power unit. Jordi says, I don't care, off the track is off the track, and gravel traps punish you for that, absolutely. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, if you go off the circuit, you should be punished for it. You should never benefit from cheating. And that's what going off the track is. If you're going off the track to try and gain time, that's what that is. It's cheating because you're trying to gain more lap time than you would if you obeyed the track limits. Right, let me look at some more comments. Eddie Webster says, looking back at the 1990s, their pit stops was tyres and fuel, and it was exciting. Nowadays, after all, did their stops as they stand on track, that is the results. True, but also, if you go back to the mid to late 80s and also very early 1990s, we didn't have refueling then, and teams back then did only one pit stop. And the racing then was, well, people want to believe it was fine, but it wasn't as good as people think. In, 88 or 89, there were great races, but there was total domination at the time. So you can't say this is, this current, as Renault have a rear wing issue with one of their cars there. I don't know who that was. One of the Renaults, I think it was Hülkenberg. But we do now have a new order. So let me update that. So Valtteri Bottas is fastest. But yeah, one-stop races are not a completely new thing, especially without refueling. We've had it before. Refueling, we did have it in the early 80s, but it was not around for that long. Refueling has only been a thing, was only a thing for about 15 years. In the, 70, 80 years of F1. And most of the time in Formula One history, we have had one-stop races or tyres that can do one stop. So it's not a completely new thing. But right, so Bottas is now top from Leclerc in second. Lewis Hamilton is third. Let me see where Max Verstappen goes though, because he's currently on a lap on the medium compound. Opens the DRS and Max Verstappen goes P5 as expected. But Vettel is P4 and then it is Verstappen in P5. P6 is Lando Norris and then P7 is Carlos Sainz. So Red Bull McLaren looking good. And that is, you have to say, and it's great to say this, it's to be expected that McLaren are doing well right now. This is the best McLaren have looked, honestly, since 2014. And that season, even though they weren't where they wanted to be, that season they were still pretty good compared to where they were in 2013. So McLaren are looking good again. But it is Grosjean 8th, then it's Kvyat in 9th. Impressive. Kimi Raikkonen is P10 and then it is Perez in P11. Giovinazzi is P12 and then I believe it is Magnussen in P13. P14 is Daniel Ricciardo and then it is Albon. And then Stroll, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Russell and Kubica. But we are about to see, I believe, changes to that order. So stay tuned because we're about to see the first proper qualifying run of the weekend. Coming up very, very soon, but I'm now going to quickly post a different picture for you guys of a Mercedes because of course they're at the very top, so might as well show them if I can find a picture of them. There you go. We're currently on the Sky F1 coverage. We're currently watching Martin Brundle, who is watching turn 9 at Austria. Turn 9, by the way, is the penultimate corner. But yeah, let me get this picture on screen before we get into the qualifying sims. So, and we've got a Red Bull there about to start a lap. Here is a Mercedes. Let me just adjust it quickly. And there you go. Yep, about an hour to go in practice 2 and plenty more action to come. As now we've got a McLaren about to start a lap. It's annoying at the moment. This is the one thing I really don't like about the Sky F1 coverage is that during practice you don't always understand what is going on because they're constantly going to different angles or different, you know, screenshots. It's really annoying, honestly, because we want to see what the times are right now, but we can't because we're seeing Martin Brundle looking at a track with no cars on it, which is not as interesting as here comes a car, but it's not as interesting as actually seeing a car. As there's a Red Bull of, I don't know who, but it's on the medium compound. I think it's Max Verstappen. But yeah, we should be seeing the lap times in a moment, as that's a Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton on the hard compound tyre coming back into the pit lane. And here's a replay as we're back now to the coverage that we actually want to see. Lewis Hamilton went off track at turn 3. So that's why he's back in the pit lane. So I think Hamilton now will come back to the pits and go for a quali run. Hamilton, though, did go up to P2. I just quickly saw there. as again they go back to Martin Brundle at turn 9. Yeah, it's now Hamilton in second, Bottas first. Leclerc is now in third. Just look at the rest of the order. So Stroll is P14. P15 is Daniel Ricciardo. And then it is Alexander Albon in P16. And yes, you are reading it right. Pierre Gasly is P17 as Sergio Perez goes up to 6th. As Norris is now on circuit. Carlos Sainz is in P8, and then you've got Grosjean now P9 as Red Bull are taking off a front wing and putting a new one on. So I'm assuming that front wing of Max Verstappen has broke somewhere. And then it is Kvyat in P10, and then P11 is Kimi Räikkönen in the Alpha. So that is the current order with about 1 hour to go in practice 2. As we will very soon, I think, be getting cars back out on circuit. Caglot